Welcome everyone. And you've probably heard of ChatGPT, you've heard of GPT-3, DALL-E, all of these amazing services that we have available for us to do generative AI work with OpenAI. But maybe you don't know where to start. Maybe you want to actually build an actual a product on there. So in today's workshop, we're going to look at how we can build actual products with OpenAI services and on top of those services. I'm joined by Shubham Shabu, and we're going to deep dive into the wonderful world of OpenAI. I love that theme music. Great to have you, Shubham. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Corey. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for everyone for joining us. I always say you could be anywhere on the internet right now, but you're here with us. So hopefully you will get something out of this session. I want to start by looking at and just asking everyone in the audience first, kind of like where they're joining from, and also have you actually used any of the OpenAI API services before? Just to get a general sense of where everyone's coming from. This will be walking you through a lot of different steps to get set up, and also then we'll build an actual end-to-end application. So you'll have all of that knowledge with you after the session. But I'm just curious where people are starting from. And Shubham, I'm assuming you've used the Open AI APIs before. Is that right?
That's a good guess, Corey.
Good.
Full
I
points for
didn't
that.
just find somebody that never done this before. That's good. Well, maybe my question to you is: do you remember when you got access to OpenAI?
That's a really good question. I cannot forget. So I applied as soon as I got to know GPT-3 is something that can generate text like humans. I was like, wow. It was somewhere in mid 2020, around mid 2020, and I got access to it somewhere in August 2020. And the first time I played with it, I was amazed.
Yeah,
To be
it's mind blowing.
Yeah, it's even like today we got so familiar with it, but in 2020 when I haven't seen something like this before, it was indeed mind-blowing, like just amazed with the capabilities.
Yeah, straight to the playground. I went. I think I got mine probably around the same time. I was going to look at my email before this to get the exact date, but I remember like bragging to everybody because that's when it was like closed beta, right? So you had to be on the wait list, and there was like
Yes.
no criteria for getting access, but you just hoped and prayed. But yeah, it was really cool. Cool. Let's
It's
see who is joining us. So we got someone from Francisco from London. Never used OpenAI, so that's good. Good start then. Haven't tried the API yet, but I'm assuming Zach, you maybe have access. Bangalore, I haven't used OpenAI, so everyone's kind of starting there. Okay,
awesome.
Lucas from Brazil, you use the web client, so the playground, I guess you mean, which we'll talk about later as well in this session. So good breadth of different experiences, but I'm trying to use ChatGPT. It is amazing. We agree. Yeah, we agree. Cool. So we're going to talk about building NLP products on OpenAI, and then we'll talk about it in a few different aspects of these things. But we will cover first LLMs, large language models demystified. Shubham is going to take us through that. And I always like, I don't know, Shubham, if it's just anything in AI needs to be demystified. We always use this word. It's like a constant thing. But yeah, you'll walk us through that. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the accessing OpenAI API. It sounds like some of you are looking to just get started now, so that's going to be a good session part there. We're going to walk you through the world of prompt engineering, so actually how to get the outputs that we are expecting when we're working with these services. Shubham will walk on the OpenAI playground, which was mentioned earlier around the web client and how you can just get your hands dirty, I guess, a little, or clean, I don't know. So just starting with that. And then we're actually going to build a Python application. Shubham's going to walk this end to end, which is super exciting. And then lastly, but probably most importantly, we're going to talk about responsible AI. I will walk through some of the responsible AI principles of Microsoft and how they apply to be working with some of the things like these generative AIs. I think it's important because I don't know about you, Shubham, but I don't want someone to walk away from this workshop and like build some, I don't know, evil app and like, oh, those guys, Corey and Shubham told me how to do it, and not we didn't tell you how to do it responsibly. So that's going to be a big point there. Another thing is we're going to share a lot of resources with you. We have some links, documentation. Shubham, you've got a great book that we could probably talk about throughout the whole entire session if you really wanted to. We're going to share that all here at this URL, and I'm going to copy and paste that in this chat. But I say don't stress because I've been on the other side of these things where like people are sending links and you're trying to like look on the Chrome URL and stuff like that and find out exactly where they are. We have all of these centralized here in the resources so you can look as we go, or even after this session, you can find it. And you also find the recording of this session there, as well as where you can find Shubham and Mai on the social webs as well. Cool. So without further ado then, Shubham, please demystify large language models.
That's, can I share my screen, Cody?
Yeah, I'll throw you in there.
Awesome. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Great.
I'm going to throw some of these chat messages on as well while we wait.
Are we on the what are large language models slide?
Yep, I can see it.
Awesome. Awesome. So the word said demystified, but LLMs, if you want to understand from a layman's perspective or in very simple terms, it is nothing but an AI model that predicts the next word, just like we humans, right? When I'm saying a sentence, I'm trying to take the context from whatever I said before and trying to complete it by speaking the next word. In a similar way, large language models work. And I won't go into too much of technical details because I understand we have audience coming from everywhere, from all the different backgrounds, might not be having a technical background, but just to give you a little bit of brief about what large language models are. So all these models that you see today being ChatGPT, GPT-3, GPT 3.5, and all the other companies that are launching their LLMs, chatbots, all of these are large language models. Large language models are text in, text out models that works just for text. And they are based on transformer architecture, which uses attention mechanism, very similarly how humans do, or how humans look at words, how humans look at sentences. So when you give a sentence to these kind of models, it looks at the relationship between words and work by predicting the next word in the sequence. So I've thrown some examples here for you to understand, right? The first example is Spider-Man was bitten by a radioactive spider, which gave him his powers. Powers is the next word that the LLM or the AI model would predict for you. And then in the example two, you see that I have expanded the context and given a better context, and given a bigger sentence. So which makes it easier for a language model to predict, and it makes it easier, or it increases the accuracy of the language model to predict. Very similarly to humans, right? As and when we have more context, we get better and better at predicting things, so we get better at understanding each other. So let's say you have a friend. When you first met him or her, you didn't have much context about where they come from, what's the background, what they do. So the conversation is at a different level. But as you get to know them more and more, you learn more about them, the quality of conversation gets better. Similarly, it's very similar how these language models work. And this entire thing in a technical term is called reinforcement learning with human feedback. So the more you play with it, it becomes better and adapts to your personality, it adapts to your style, and gets better and better with time. So why GPT-3? It's a very interesting question. Or why ChatGPT? Why these? Because these models are changing the world as we know it. Everything that we are seeing, every field, every domain is getting impacted by it. And you see the meme on the right side, right? This is even generated. What if I say this is even generated by GPT-3. So there's the startup that uses GPT-3 to generate memes. So now you can generate memes using, you can even generate memes using GPT-3. It's very accessible. A lot of you said that you have played with the web client, and I'm assuming the web client is GPT-3 Playground. And in Playground, it's as simple as just logging in and just putting in whatever you want to do with the model in simple English and get the output. It has never been easier before to interact with an AI or in general technical piece of software. There were so many barriers. You need to have certain kind of qualification, certain education, certain background if you want to interact with AI or a machine learning model. And GB3 being one of the most advanced, most sophisticated model, still is very accessible. And that's the beauty about it. The democratization part of it and the accessibility of it is what makes it so unique. So all you need to know, all you need to interact with these models is just to know, have an idea, and just to know simple English. You just give the instruction simple English and get the output in the web browser itself. You don't have to install anything, don't need to know anything. Second, it is powering a new ecosystem of products. Now we are seeing left, right, and center. There are applications, startups getting built on top of GPT-3. These are some startups, some big corporates. There are some big names here as well, right? Microsoft is heavily leveraging GPT-3. GitHub Copilot it's become one of the most used product that's built on top of GPT-3, or most used AI product now. And these are some products that I cover in my book. I cover detailed case studies of how they started, how they are built on top of OpenAI API, some behind the scenes learnings, advices, mistakes they did. So it's an interesting read if you're interested in. And this is just the tip of iceberg. Now we have thousands of startups that are built on the top of OpenAI API, GPT-3, and large language models in general. OpenAI is just one company, but now we have 10 other companies doing the same thing because this is the future. And finally, if you want it or not, it does impact society. So either you want to use it or not, either you understand it or not, it does impact society. The kind of content it is creating and the amount and the abundance of content it is creating, the things it is putting out there, the companies leveraging it, the individuals using it. If you get on this train, well and good for you. If you don't, still it impacts the society around you. So it's better to understand or know what these technologies are and what are they capable of. Over to you, Corey. You want to walk them through how they can access the OpenAI API?
Yeah, that's a thanks. I really liked your explanation of large language models, and I know we're really focusing on OpenAI at this moment, but I wanted to ask you, and probably what other people are feeling around the world as far as like these large language models and how they get released. Like it seems like almost weekly we get a new one out there, and like they have like, how do we decide on which ones that should we use? I know you have a newsletter out there on One AI, and that's like helpful for keeping track of that. But like, how do you keep track of like all of these releases, and like how do you think about, oh, I want to use this product or framework now, or all these tools out there? Like, what advice would you give like this audience on like getting started there?
That's a very good question, Corey. And there is this joke in the AI community that's going on for far too long now. So previously, when we used to talk about AI developments, the timeline used to be okay in months or in years. Now people just used to talk in weeks. Oh, in the
Yeah.
next week we are gonna get something. Next week we are gonna get a new model, something like that. So that has been a long time joke in the AI community that's been going around. So what I do to stay updated or to stay on top of all of these things is I get my updates mostly from Reddit and Twitter, because these are the places where you can get first-hand information. I can't rely with the pace that these developments are happening, right? Dynamic the field is. I cannot rely on typical news mediums like tech blogs or tech articles, something
Yeah.
like that. So that's where I get my bear, and I'm trying to keep everybody who is connected to me, who is in my network, or whoever follows me, to keep them updated on whatever is cutting edge or whatever new on latest developments happening on AI. So if you want to stay updated, you can follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter. And then there is a newsletter that I publish every week, which is a collection of everything that has happened. As you can think of it as a snapshot of all the AI developments that has happened in the last week, thrown in right there. So you just have to spend 5 minutes and you're updated.
No, that's good. And I mean, I do recommend a follow for Shubham because I mean, I'm not sure if you are all your posts beautifully ChatGPT generated or not, or you're actually writing them, but they are always entertaining and yeah, well formatted, I guess, at least. Cool. So
Thank you.
it's very interesting that a lot of you have joined and you're just getting started on either getting access to OpenAI API or kind of waiting for that moment to get started, because that is, I think, a good time to join a workshop like this to understand before, even if you do get started, which ways you can enter it. And I guess there's kind of two ways we're going to talk about this. One is through the Azure OpenAI service. So of course, this is a Microsoft stream, so it wouldn't be a Microsoft stream without us talking a little bit about Azure. We won't talk about too much here, but basically the Azure OpenAI service allows you, if you're an Azure or Microsoft customer, to have these models, which we'll talk about even later on which one you're using in your own sort of Azure instance or environment. It is generally available at the moment, meaning if you apply and are a type of customer that will have this sort of use case, you will get access to this. But it's not something that at the moment, as an individual developer, for example, you can sort of get access to as you would with the OpenAI API, which we'll talk about later on. But just to talk about it, we basically you can have these three of the core models with OpenAI: GPT-3, which is what we'll even use today around generating and understanding the text; Codex, which is specific around generating code, which I think is super cool; and then DALL-E, which is around taking the text prompts and images. So you've probably seen these all on, like as mentioned, Reddit, Twitter, all of these great things that people are making with them. So these are some of the examples of the prompts that you can do around that, whether it's rather a tagline for an ice cream shop, which I think is like the sample of the OpenAI playground. And then you can also use generating AI with Codex, which is kind of powering GitHub Copilot as well. But it's really cool and saves a lot of time when you're doing things like SQL queries, because I don't know about you, Shubham, but like I know SQL, but I always forget syntax. And like, this is great for me to actually know SQL, or now I can validate my own knowledge. And then DALL-E, which is super cool around generating images. So Shubham's going to walk through the OpenAI playground, but we actually have within the Azure OpenAI Studio, which looks very, very similar. And I tried to do like what's different here, kind of comparing the two. And one of the things is that we actually track the amount of tokens that you're doing in your prompts. And if tokens is like a brand new concept to you, stay tuned, because we're going to explain that later on, because that's going to be really important when you're making an Azure OpenAI account, the pricing and how you're actually managing your application. But that's one of the neat things you can do with the Azure OpenAI service. So if you do are interested in the Azure OpenAI service, one of the things we actually already have built a lot of the documentation and tutorials on this page. So I would recommend, and that's in our links page here, which you'll see here, which you have our recording, which is one of the questions I just see in the chat. You'll see that the resources, the documentation, and it says some great things around like the intro to Azure OpenAI. We'll actually have a tutorial around working with embeddings and just some quick starts to get you started there. So if you are a Microsoft customer, or you're interested in at least looking at that later on, I would take a look at this documentation, click around, and you'll really get an understanding of what's capable with the Azure OpenAI service. But for the rest of the world, we also have the OpenAI API, which I think majority of people here might be already using or want to get started using. There's three kind of different things I want to talk about. One is the account credentials and creating an account. I trust that you could do this workflow yourself, so I won't walk you through that. It's pretty straightforward. If you ever signed up for any sort of developer type service, you sign up with an email, get API credentials, make sure to save those API credentials somewhere safe, and then you can actually get started. Some great tutorials around quick start guide, but I do want to talk around the different models that you have and understanding the pricing of OpenAI, because it's one thing to say I've used OpenAI and you see all those like examples, but you actually need to know specifically what models you use depending on your use case. So there's a few different models which we kind of already talked about. So GPT 3.5 or GPT 3, essentially taking prompt, and it can actually generate text and code. I say the use case is almost anything. I don't know, Shubham, do you agree on that? Like you could almost do anything with GPT 3.5?
Almost anything that is text.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be on a stream saying like you can't do something and then like somebody find me and like, look, I did this with GPT 3.5. So there's some great things, but yeah, it's strictly for the text code outputs at least. So make sure that that's what you're using when you want to do that. DALL-E is taking the prompt and generating images. I've seen some really cool use cases around making like website layouts and design. Also like product variation. So, you can imagine if you have like a shirt and you want to have that shirt in like, 60 different colors, instead of having like a designer to just change the color of those things, you can just use DALL-E to make some cool product variations and see what that actually looks like. Whisper is like the new kid on the block, I guess, one of the newer API services out there, and I can do audio to text. And I've seen some really cool stuff. Even one of my colleagues, GPS, shout out to her. She made some using Whisper API, like the actual transcriptions or timestamps on YouTube videos. So taking all of those things and then like, okay, which timestamps do I need? So saving a lot of time for creators and people like us making content. But you can do cool things with like podcasts and video transcriptions as well, and audio notes. There's embeddings, which I don't think gets that much attention, which I think is really cool. Which I said this takes text to relationships. So before, when I kind of started my whole machine learning journey and AI journey, it's essentially was like clustering and k-means and things like that to like find relationships between things. But now we can actually use large language models to do them, and almost maybe more efficiently. So you can do cool things like recommendation engines. So if you're interested in something like that, I would definitely dive deeper into that. And then we have codecs, which are meant to, like we already explained, we can take prompts and generate code from them. Copilot is probably the biggest use case of that I've seen in production. But I've also seen some really cool tools around testing, documentation, which things like developers hate to do. We can make the AI do that for us, which is great. And then lastly, again, another non-talked about one, but around moderation. So I say this is like text to safety, essentially taking the text and understanding if this is like a threatening or dangerous type of text. And this is really great for, I would say, live stream chat moderation. I think everybody here is super nice. It seems like I have not seen any wrong comments or anything like that we need to take out. But that's something that you can use the moderation GPT OpenAI service to do. So really, really cool stuff like that. I know, Shubham, you are in there and you're looking at use cases all the time. What's been like the most exciting use case you've seen or interesting?
Yeah.
Like, wow, I never thought about that.
So I want to take some time to introduce people, or just to let them know that this embeddings use case that you are looking at, right, may sound boring, but all these cool things that you are hearing these days around the AI search, everybody's building their own AI search. A large chunk of that is enabled by embedding. So that's something to understand. In anywhere when you want to increase the context, when you want to make things searchable, just think about any PDF you can throw, and you can build a question answer endpoint on top of it. So exciting, right? And now you don't have to scroll through PDF to find the information that you're looking for. Just throw in any document, you'll have the question answering endpoint on top of it. That's one of the very interesting use case I came across. And the other use case that I really like is from Bible, which is how it aggregates the feedback from all the sources and again provide you a QA endpoint. So if you just want to understand like why your customers are unhappy, it will collect the data from your emails, from your customer feedback, from the CRM, all the sources that you have, and just give you a one-liner answer. And on top of that, some action items that you can do or follow to improve your customer experience. So something like that is enabling an end-to-end operations and industry is something which has immense value and something which is very exciting for me.
Very cool. Yeah, I see some use cases popping up here. Leonardo working at UiPath, doing that robot process automation. Well, UiPath, I don't know if you've ever worked with that, but it's such a cool product. And it still seems like he's doing some OpenAI APIs for testing capabilities and limitations. So again, that kind of repetitive, maybe repetitive, I don't know, maybe really like it, kind of work is, I think, so such an interesting use case for that stuff. So thanks, Leonardo, for sharing that. We have one other question. I'm not sure. So a quick ask, is mathematics mandatory element here since ChatGPT integration can be embedded as an initiative? Shubha, I don't know. Do you understand that question?
Yeah, I am thinking, I'm assuming the person is asking like, does he needs to know math to use these APIs or these models? The quick answer is no, you don't need to know math or for that matter, anything. No prerequisite is needed to use GB3, DALL-E, Whisper, and all these models. You just need to have an idea and basic understanding of English. Just need to know how to use a web browser. That's all you need to know to get started with these. And then we'll later in the session we'll look at how you can easily go from playground to production with minimal friction, even if you don't know anything or come from a non-technical background.
Very, very good answer. I think we always, anytime there's like an AI or data science session, there is that question of like, do I need to know math? But I always say math is good, just as a good skill to have. But no, it's not required, I would say.
Math is
Cool.
good, but if you don't come from that background, it's not a must.
Yeah, it can be intimidating, I guess, for some people.
Yes.
Cool. So that's the different models. There is within GPT-3, and I think this is where people get most lost on the GPT different models within them. So I wanted to do a quick breakdown. I think the documentation, the OpenAI documentation does a pretty good job, even though it says like almost in all of them that like they're fast and price efficient. But we'll start with GPT 3.5 Turbo again, the newer one. And maybe if you're watching this in like a year's time, it'll be like this will be completely outdated. But at this current moment, at least, this is what's available. So 3.5 Turbo is really optimized for building for chat. So this is like kind of your Chat GPT. And then within there is actually Text DaVinci 003, which is made mainly for longer outputs. So if you're doing something around like maybe summarization, but you want to have the outputs of the what gets sent or to the user or whoever after the prompt, it's actually more specialized for those sorts of things. DaVinci 002, the difference between 3 and 2 is actually working with training trained with supervised learning. And the difference is that actually, I think, Shubha, you might have mentioned it a little bit before, DaVinci 003 was actually trained with reinforced learning, and it actually has seen at least a lot more, not necessarily creative, but mainly more in contextual outputs. So if you're looking for something in that use case or that area, I would recommend doing DaVinci 003, but it's always great to compare these sorts of things and you can use them interchangeably and see your different outputs there. And then Code DaVinci 002 is around codex model. So we're already talking about the generating code. And then there's also another one within that, Cushman 001. This is faster than DaVinci as far as response, but there's a shorter token request. So the documentation actually recommends if you do this for like real-time code generation to suggest that, or if you need to have that less, but you want longer output, so longer code essentially, DaVinci, the Code DaVinci is actually the better fit match for that. And then, which I see a question as well around fine tuning for Lucas, and I think was also answered in the chat. So thanks, Nuno. But there's these base models, which when we're talking about like when did you get access to GPT, these were the only ones sort of available at that time, were Curie, Babbage, and Ada. And these are actually available for fine tuning, which the other models like GPT 3.5 are not. Fine tuning, essentially, we can probably do a whole session on that, which I think maybe we should. But basic fine tuning is to get maybe your use case, your data or whatever in a way so you can kind of give the model specific prompts and it can sort of learn from them. So if you have a specific use case, I think someone wrote something around medical, and you maybe want to train that model on that type of data, you can actually fine tune this, and it'll maybe be better performance than on these general purpose models that we have available to us. But super good questions. Love that. I love also seeing people answering their questions in the chats as well. Save some time for me. But that's navigating the models, and the suggestion is really to start with GPT 3.5. That's what's in the documentation, and then you can kind of toy or play around with the other models to see your performance and understanding the price, because that's also one of the things. Pricing and also your limits is always based on tokens. And Shubham mentioned this before, but you have these token-based pricing models within these large language models, and they are all predicting the next word. But the way that the model knows these words is assigning them to tokens, and they're not always divided perfectly in the way that you have an input sequence, which you can see here on this image here, where I have like not all heroes wear capes. Was 1, 2, 3, and 4. Tokens actually can be divided in between words as well, and I'll show you that as well. But then it's making that prediction on the next word, or taking that whole sequence, actually making predictions on a sequence basis. OpenAI made this nice tokenizer tool, which I want to show you so you can get an understanding of how that actually works. So if I go here, and this link is on there as well. But if I have this tokenizer tool, I can go ahead and, like, let's say I want to create a tweet in the style of me and Shubham are talking with me. So like this whole session, and you can see there's 22 tokens within them, and I have like create a tweet, but like K is its own token, ORE it's a token as well. So it gives you an understanding a little bit more about how this works. So it's not just per word basis. And again, both the pricing of OpenAI is based on tokens as well as the output on them. So just to give you an understanding of that. And like I said, the Azure OpenAI service actually shows you that within the playground, how much tokens are being used. Cool. So go ahead, Shubham.
I want to add, can you stay on the previous screen? I want to add one more point on the tokenizer part. For anybody who is not developing a use case that is primarily in English, or who is developing a multilingual use case which is in a different language other than English. So generally it has been seen that the token distribution is not similar to what you would see in English as compared to another language. So if I write my name in English, the number of tokens is less as compared to if I write my name in Hindi, let's say, or Spanish. So that's something that you need to take care of when you are developing a multilingual use case. Always be aware that how many tokens it is consuming. And what Corey is sharing is a good tool to look at and try to understand before developing a multilingual application. And as mentioned, along with OpenAI, there are multiple other platforms that is available today. So you can always look for where you can get a better performance per dollar. And then can decide which platform you would want to use in production. That you can call a pro tip. Just wanted to add there if anybody's going to production with this.
Yeah, that's a great point. And yeah, to see exactly what kind of tokens you're there. I did some basic Swedish here, so just to test your theory. But yeah, it's very interesting that if you're working with non-English, the considerations there. I think that's super important. Well, let's see if we have any questions. So we have one question. Can we use few shot learning on DaVinci? I think that's maybe 003. I don't know if 008 is available or not, or Turbo. Do you know anything about that?
I think what she's talking about is DaVinci. I mean, GPT 3.5 Turbo, the one that is launched.
Yeah, I think so
what
too.
I'm assuming. So yeah, you can definitely do few shot learning on any of these models, right? It goes in the prompt itself. So we are just going to talk about it right after this in the next few slides. To answer your question, you can do few shot learning with any of these models, but when it comes to fine tuning, you can just do fine tuning on the base models, which is DaVinci, Ada, Babbage, and Curie.
Yeah.
But few shot, single shot, you can do on any of these models.
I like this. I like this question here because it's very specific to something that somebody wants to build and they want us to help. How would you help solve a world problem? I'm gonna not answer that question. I'm gonna hopefully think after you've done this whole workshop that you will be able to answer your own question. But if not, feel free to ping us and we can maybe help you out. But I love that you're already thinking about some problems.
If you want to build a model, if you want to really train a model and understand how this works, try asking GPT or ChatGPT. Maybe meanwhile we finish this session, you'll have your answer. You'll have a solution working.
Yeah. And I just want to share one more time that all the links and the resources that we are sharing, like that tokenizer tool and the deck, will be there, as well as the recording at that link there. But yeah, we talked about prompts. So please, Shubham, take us away. How do we actually get the things we want from these beautiful models?
Awesome. Let's talk about the most awaited topic of the day, this prompt engineering. There's some lag, sorry. So let's start with first, what is prompt engineering? In very simple words, it is the art and science of giving clear instruction to GPT-3 or any large language model in a way that it generates a desired output. Think of it very similarly to how you talk to a human, right? You can tell someone something very vaguely, but the response or the action would be vague, is what you can assume. But if you want your work to be done with 100% efficiency, you will try to be more concrete when you're giving instruction. If you're asking to do someone a particular job, you would be more careful when you give the instruction, especially when you're giving it in writing, right? Think about when you have to write an email to your colleague, asking them to do a certain thing for you. You would be very clear with your instructions. Similarly, you can think about prompt engineering as giving instruction to an AI model. How careful you are when giving instructions to humans. Similarly, you can think this is how you should go about while giving instructions to an AI model. A very clear, very concrete, highlight whatever you want and be very specific about it. And secret to writing good prompt is understanding what the model knows about the world and aligning your inputs accordingly. So if you look at all these models, they are trained to, there is a cutoff timing to their training period. Most of these models are trained, if I'm not wrong, Corey, so they correct me if I'm wrong. They are trained till September 2021, or some are trained till 2022. So you need to know that you should not give models or ask these models about current events or something that just happened very recently. And even if you want to ask them, just try to give some context that really helps. Some people are calling prompt engineering as the software 3.0 revolution. If you look at these memes, this meme has become very popular a year back when the prompt engineering was new and it was making all the noises. Initially, it was like pre-software era where special purpose computer is what we have. Then came the software development part where designing the algorithm was the big thing. Then come the machine learning era, which we are calling software 2.0, which is all about you need to have a data set to do something, right? Data is the new oil, or data is the key to everything. Now it is all about designing the prompt because we have had the abundance of data, and that too fed into a language model, an AI model. So now it's all about how you get whatever you want by querying that data or by prompting that data. That's what prompt engineering is all about. And before we even deep dive into prompt engineering and how you can go about it, let's understand the two key components that is involved here. First is prompt and the other one is response. Prompt is prompt is the input that you give to the language model, and response is something that is generated by the language model. So if I give GPT-3, let's say this example, Berlin is the capital of, again, as we discussed previously, what a language model does is predict the next word, and the next word is response. So two components are involved, prompt and response in prompt engineering. And there are multiple types of prompts, as people are asking in the question, can we do few shot prompting with this model or that model? So before that, let's understand there is three types of prompts basically. One is zero shot, where you don't have to give any example, you don't have to show model anything, where you don't show the model anything. You simply ask the model. So you can ask the model to write a product description about a cell phone, or write a product description about a toothpaste or anything. So you just ask the model a certain thing without giving them any examples. Then single shot, you show the model a single example of how you want it to be. Let's say you show the model the kind of advertisement or product description you would want for a cell phone, and ask it to generate it for a television or a refrigerator, whatever. Then there are few shots where you show multiple examples. When I say multiple, it doesn't need to be 100, it doesn't need to be 50. You can just show 5 to 8 examples or 3 to 5 examples, and the model will be able to understand from that and follow up on that. So the thing that you should take out from here is we have 3 different prompts: zero shot, single shot, and few shot. And the rule of thumb that you should follow is to get your answers or to get the desired output in zero shot. So you're not enabling or incorporating any bias in your output data, because if you show a single example, what the model would understand or will get from it is try to adjust the output based on that single example or based on those multiple examples. So what you should try is to get the desired output in zero shot. Next, how to go about prompt engineering, how you can go about prompt engineering. So in my book, I have put this 5-step formula, which you can use to go about prompt engineering. First is you should define the problem that you're trying to solve. And the problem can be it's basically machine learning tasks, which we used to have before. You can classify something, you can do question answering, you can generate something. It can be a creative problem where you're generating something like generating product description, emails, or all those things. So define the problem that you're trying to solve. Once you have done that, then ask yourself the same question: is there a way I can get a solution with 0 examples? Similarly, start with zero shot. And I've given you the reason why you should do that and why that is better. So that the model, so the domain of model is completely open. It doesn't bias the output based on the examples that you give. So ask yourself if there is a way to get a solution with 0 examples in zero shot. If you think you need examples, then go back to step 2 and think really hard, because this is an important point. If you can get the model working in zero shot, there's nothing like that. Then once you have done all of that, if you think you can do it in zero shot, or if you think you would need example, it's fine. The 4th step is think how you will formulate the problem. So you have some rough idea or a problem that you want to solve for, or that you want to create a solution for. Now try to visualize or try to formulate it in a text in, text out format. Like, what is the text that I should give to get this kind of textual response? Because this is how GPT-3 or any other large language model work. It is a simple text in, text out API. You give some text, you get out some text. And think of different possible scenarios in which you can represent your problem in textual form. And based on that, just pick the one which you think is the best representation of your problem, best textual representation of your problem, and give that as the input to the language model and get the desired output. And if you want to use examples, if you think you definitely need examples, there's no way out, use as few as possible, and try to have a diverse set of examples. Don't give very similar examples, because again, this would result in biasing or in adding some bias to the model's output. So try to use examples at different extremes. Try to be as diverse as you can when you're using examples. Now, some tips around prompt engineering that you should know. Prompt is still the written spoken language, just like how we communicate. So the grammar, the punctuation, part of speech, it matters, because the model understands it. It's just the written text, kind of written communication that they are doing with anybody. So it's always better to understand these things and be clear and concise as much as possible. Think hard about what you want to achieve. This was the point in the last slide as well, right? So think about your problem first, be clear in your mind, because clarity of input highly affects the quality of output. Know your subject, know your use case before designing the prompt for it. So if you want to build, if you have a use case in healthcare and don't have any kind of domain experience, or you don't even come from that domain, so maybe consult an expert or meet a doctor or someone like that. Because the better the quality of your prompt, the better will be your output. If you need an analogy for that, think about it. For conventional machine learning, the better the data set, the better will be your output. Similarly, the better you design the prompt, the better would be output. So for novel use cases, specialized topics, you can go and consult the experts. You can learn more about it, and once you have a clarity, then you can design the prompt for it. And good prompts are compressed form of expressivity. It's like playing a game of charades. So how expressive you can be, how much you can communicate in the words that you're giving to the language model, highly affects the quality of response or the quality of output. Just like we do in the game of charades, how expressive you can be with your words. Now let's look at, so this was prompt engineering, guys. Let's look at OpenAI Playground and how that looks like.
So this is, before you go, I just want to say a good point about asking the experts around building a prompt, because I think it gets confused. Like, oh, prompt, like if prompt, you can make a prompt, there will be no developers, there'll be no doctors, there'll be anything like that. But like designing a prompt still takes some good expert knowledge or things to get accurate. So I think that's a really good point there. We had some questions.
Awesome.
I think it was answered about the zero shot versus like redoing or doing the other two. You've put us in the Matrix, by the way. I'll take that away. And then, do you think prompt engineering is future-proof? That's a prediction type question there.
So personally, I don't think prompt engineering is future-proof, because don't think of prompt engineering as a feature of these models. Prompt engineering is a bug in us reaching towards AGI. The more closer we get towards AGI, this entire problem of prompt engineering would get solved. Because in the end, finally, you would want an AI where you don't need to have a barrier, or where you don't need a special language to communicate with. So prompt engineering is a bug in us getting towards AGI. It's not a feature. So it is not a framework, but it's not future proof, but it is here to stay in the short to mid term, let's say for next 3 to 5 years. But as we get more towards the AGI, this entire framework of prompt engineering would get obsolete, and it would be very similar to the language, the day-to-day language that we use. AI will get more and more smarter. The RHLF thing will kick in. The more we interact with the AI, the smarter the AI would get. So it's not future-proof. It's a bug. It's not a feature, and it is there to go. The closer we get to AGI, the lesser we would require to engineer special prompts for any of the use case or application.
I think that's like if we had like one big major quote for this workshop, is prompt engineering is a bug. Shubham. There we go. I like that. I like that. Good point though. Cool. So let's go to the playground. You're going to take us there, and I ruined that moment.
Awesome. I'll just take you to the playground, not the slides. Just directly to the playground. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep. You could maybe zoom in a bit if you can.
Okay, I'll try. Is it better now?
Yeah. If you can't see that, let us know.
Awesome. Is it good, Corey?
Yep, it looks good to me.
Awesome. So this is how the playground looks like. Quickly going through it. Here you can get the presets, like some predefined examples by OpenAI. You can click on more examples, and then you'll get to an array of examples, which you'll get, and it pre-populates. Once you click on a preset, it pre-populates with the input. Then on the right side panel, you have different parameters that we can quickly go through. So there are different modes. One is complete. Very recently, based on ChatGPT, this chat interface has launched, which we'll go through it in some time. There is an insert mode. There's an edit mode, which we'll look at in detail, which we'll look at later. So now you can, in the complete mode, which is the most popular one. so far. You can select different models as Text, DaVinci, Curie, Bavish, Ada. And if you want to do something with the code, like code explanation, all those things, you can use Code DaVinci, Code Cushman. If you want to do code generation, all those things. And the basic difference here comes in capabilities and pricing. Text DaVinci is highly priced compared to Text Ada. Bavish, Ada is very low cost. So based on your use case, I would suggest try to start experimenting with the biggest possible model and go downwards to understand the capabilities of the model. And then comes the temperature, which controls the creativity, the randomness of the response. Maximum length you can specify, you can control this with that. What this means is like the length of output that the model would generate, so you can control it from here. Stop sequence, if you want the model to stop after generating a particular word or a token, you can put it here. You can put like anything, let's say Venus or stop or out, whatever the stop sequence you would want to put. Top P is very similar to temperature. If you are playing with temperature, it is recommended or advised to keep top P at 1 because it controls the domain of the response for the model. If you minimize it to 0, that model would have very limited capability to experiment, explore, and come up with creative response. So it is advised to keep top P at 1 when you're playing with the temperature or when you're exploring, experimenting with the temperature. Lesser the temperature, lower the creativity, lower the randomness, higher the temperature, higher the randomness. Then comes the frequency penalty. It penalizes the existing tokens based on their frequency. Comes the presence penalty. It penalizes the tokens based on their presence so far. Then the best of, here you can select like how many times the model would run before generating the output. So if best of is 1, the model would run a single time before generating the output. If the best of is 6, the model would run 6 times and calculate the probability and give you the calculate the average and figure out what the best response is. And after running 6 times, it will give you the best response. You can inject the start text, so you can say anything as start or input. So when the model will start, it will append the start text in the beginning. Restart text, so when the model response would end, it will append the restart text in the end. And you can also choose this option if you are more explorative, curious to understand the probabilities. So it shows the probabilities of generating the next word or generating the sentence, which we talked about initially, have been talking so far, that what LLMs or these models do is generate the next word. So you can just look at these probabilities, like what are the probabilities of generating these things. So let's quickly look at this simple use case. Not so simple, but now it is with all these things. Summarize this for a second grade student. So this is a paragraph. Second grade student wouldn't know about Jupiter, Sun, solar system. Some would know, but a lot of them wouldn't. So you can just click submit. As I was talking, you just have to put the text here, click submit, and you'll get your response. So here is your response. That is catered or curated in a way that a child would understand. And somebody was asking me in the questions that I've seen before, how can she extract keywords from a block of text? So this is given here in the example. You put a block of text, click submit, instruct the model that extract the keyword. In machine learning, this is called named entity recognition. And here you get all the keywords. And you can build on this use case. This is a very simple one. So this is playground. Now let's quickly look at, we are getting close to the end of the session. Before we end, I want to walk you through a simple Python application. Let's look at that. So we will build a simple use case around language translation. So here in the playground, you see I've given the instruction to model to classify the text from English to French. So it becomes an AI translator application. Given any English sentence, it is able to classify it into French. So let's submit and see. Oh, so it classifies it very well. And the similar thing you can, I'll quickly walk you through some of the other modes as well. Similar thing you can do with ChatGPT. And this is more intuitive. You can tell the system that you are an assistant that translates English to French, and then you can keep giving these inputs. Hi, my name is Shubham. You can submit it. And here it is. Bonjour, je m'appelle Shubham. So here it is. The basic difference that I can tell you between ChatGPT, this new recently launched API, and the one here, the text Damishi, this is good for completion task, and this is good for chat related tasks. And the other big difference is like this one is 10 times cheaper. Yes, 10 times cheaper than this one. So OpenAI did a great job. Kudos to them for making it so cheaper. Let's look at, okay, we have got this here. Now, if you want to build a simple Python application on top of it, and we'll look at a full stack application where we'll have a front end, a backend API running, and a simple front end that you can host and share it with your friends, colleagues, whoever you want to show. So all they have to do is just give a simple English input and they get the output. They don't have to look at all these background details. They don't have to go through these parameters. Just simply put the input and get the output. Let's quickly do that. Before just a plugin, if you want to do that, you can just go here. I've created a GPT-3 sandbox for you. The link is shared by Corey in the chat. So it's there. If you want to see, the application is also hosted here on the internet. So you can just go and play with it if you want. You can just specify your API key here and play with it. But before that, just pick the time and let's quickly see how we can build a full end-to-end application with minimal user interface with this, and that too all in Python. So let's just, OpenAI gives this very cool feature where you can just view the code in any language that you're comfortable with. We'll copy that. We'll open the IDE. Corey, can you see the IDE here?
Yep, we can see it, and I think it's pretty good size, but they'll let us know if we can't.
Awesome. Just let us know in the chat if you can't see the text that I'm typing. So let's just copy paste the text, and I'll make some minor modifications to it to build an application out of it. So we'll use Streamlit. Streamlit is a framework that lets you build front-end interface end-to-end in Python. So if you don't know any front-end language, and I've been a backend developer, just know Python, that's good enough. Python lets you do everything these days. All we have to do is import Streamlit. So I also have a GitHub Copilot installed on my IDE, which makes it pretty easy. Just like this, it auto completes all our code. st.title, AI translation app. Okay, then we have this OpenAI API key. I can just specify the key here. So here is my key. I saved it already. But if you want, you can get it from the OpenAI console. If you want to get your key, you can just go here, create here, view API keys. Okay. And you can just create a new secret key and copy this and use it in your code. So that's the process to get your API key. Then what we need is we need to create a input box for users to give us the input. This is GitHub Copilot in action, guys, helping me all around. Then we just need a default prompt. And I'll just use this one, which we already got from the playground. So here, I'll just do a minor change. Instead of this text output, what I'll do here is make it dynamic. So I'll just leave a placeholder and remove this translation. Leave it to be generated by the AI. So that's all we did. We have got the input box to get the input from the user. We have default prompt, which we got from the playground itself. So I'll remove this prompt here. And here I'll do an input prompt. Bear with me, guys. Then we just wrap it in a simple function. So I'll just create a model prediction function. Okay, this would work. I don't need the API key. I've already set it up. Input prompt is what we would need. And let's pass it. Oh, sorry, my bad. Let's put it all inside this function. Press tab. Okay, that's done. Now I want to return response. And this is just, so response is what the raw JSON would look like. Then from that JSON, just like any other, you can select the text. And this is how the path looks like. Again, GitHub Copilot is helping me all around. You can split it, strip it to remove the white spaces. And then we can just simply create a button. So GitHub Copilot is pretty much writing the code for me everywhere. So we can have this. We have the output. Then we would need an, I don't think so. We need this. Next record. Need an input prompt that we can pass to our function, to our model prediction function. And what we have to do is append the input, the dynamically generated input that we'll get from the user here. It will go here. This is what we are doing, default prompt.format. This is a basic Python trick. Then we get the output by calling the model prediction function with this input prompt. Input prompt could be any input that I give. And with that, we are calling this function. Once we have called this function, then we can use the Streamlit feature st.write output. And voila, we are all done. So all you have to do to run this library, run this code, is to install two basic libraries, which is OpenAI, which you would anyway have to install. Along with that, you just have to install the Streamlit library to get a front-end user interface. And it was very simple. We just have added few different lines to build it, and the total code is still less than 30 lines, and you've built an AI translator app. So I've already created this virtual environment. Now, what I can do is I can run the Streamlit application. Streamlit run demo.py. So let's run it. Hope this works, Corey. Okay, seems like it's working. Let's try, take it for a spin. Hi, my name is Shubham. Let's see. Oops, some error I'm getting. Sorry for that, guys. Let's no attribute format.
The demo gods aren't on your side today, as normal.
Sorry?
The demo gods are not on your side today.
Yes. Okay. I got the error. I think they are now. Should rerun. This is weird. Should work.
Yeah, well, one suggestion, I think you just changed that. I couldn't see, but the input parameter, input prompt instead of imprompt.
Which one?
Input, you have a line 25. Oh yeah, there you go. I think that should.
I think yeah, this was the one. Weird. Sorry for that, guys.
Well, we'll have the working code in a repository. So
yes, we'll have the working code in the repository. Very sorry for that.
It happens. Cool. Well, thanks for that. I did want to round up this conversation with some talk about responsibility within AI, because I think a lot of times, we've seen some suggestions of people making some side projects and personal projects and think, well, I don't need to think about responsible AI and things like that because maybe not many people are going to use my application now. But the thing what's so crazy around these large language models and GPT-3 is like things move rather quickly as far as scaling. And even if you have one user, they might use your product quite heavily, like if they're building writing or things like that. So it's super important, I think, to also think about how to apply responsible AI standards to your products. And at Microsoft, we've developed this AI standards around accountability, transparency, fairness, and reliability and safety. And these apply to almost any sort of AI system. But I wanted to make this relevant to this conversation. So I thought about how some of these things happen in large language models or working with GPT-3. And one of those is, we talk about accountability. A subsection of that is fit for purpose. So we talked about some of the different models that are available with OpenAI and choosing the right one, how it does it, how it performs, the speed of how it performs, as well as their outputs. And what Shubham showed you as well, the temperature is super important when considering working and building with those models. So understanding your use case, and also the training data that was used for that model, which Shubham mentioned earlier as well. If some of these models, the last time they were trained was 2021. So it's super important if you're trying to build something that's super dependent on relevant at the moment news or something like that, that you are putting those safeguards in place. And then in fairness, we're talking about minimizing the meaning or erasing output. So again, we're talking about the temperature of models. If you adjust the temperature, basically the creativity of the model, the outputs is adjusted as well. And you can get some strange things that, well, I think at times could be very demeaning to certain groups. And I'll give you an example of actually one within, when we're looking at suggesting how certain groups should live, or accessibility, or how to design products with accessibility. If you adjust the temperature, you might get things where the model might have outputs that aren't necessarily aligned with those groups' ideals and goals. So looking at and understanding how prompts work, understanding how temperature works is super important when you're building a product using OpenAI and these models. And then the other 2 points around transparency. I think now, every product is super excited that they're working with AI. Maybe they get more investments or, things like that. So they always say this is the AI product. But maybe in the future as well, disguising these as human interactions instead is largely just not good, right? So actually disclosing that the AI is being interacted here, so instead of saying oh, our customer service is humans in the background, but it's just ChatGPT, is largely not responsible. Because again, if you are getting outputs or responses that maybe a human shouldn't write or wouldn't write, that could be quite an issue when you're talking to your users later on. And then lastly, reliability and safety goals. We're really talking about, especially when we're experimenting with the different models that are available, you want to monitor and gain feedback from your users and customers, and tracking those actual outputs and what the model has generated is super important, both from an accuracy perspective, but from a safety and reliability. So putting some tools in place. And I think if we look at if I would make a prediction of what's the next stage of this, is really building around a lot of the tooling around reliability and safety, so that you as a product creator or builder can get better insights on what the model is generating to your users. I think that's super important. So that's kind of responsibility AI applied to working with GPT-3 or OpenAI models, I think. But cool, this has been super great. Thanks everyone for joining and spending for so long. But go ahead.
Just really want to jump in real quick. If you can let me share my
Are you going to redeem yourself? Are you going to redeem yourself on the demo?
I did debug that. Thank you for that time. Now it's
okay. Let's do it now.
All right. All right, guys, I just made a small change. So here it was. So this is where the error was, but I can show you now how the output looks. So this is what the application looks like. And now you can just submit it and get, hi, my name is Shubham, and this is how it converts it into French. French. Hello, how are you? Here you can see it coming in French. And the last one is thank you, Corey. Awesome.
Perfect.
Thank you, Corey.
Yes, you redeemed yourself. Now people, but I think they have some questions around the repo and the code. So maybe if you can throw this in a repo.
So this is the repo where you can get the GPT sandbox. I can quickly show how this looks. All you have, this is the dashboard with all the instructions. All you have to do is just input your API key. Just put the API key here. And it already has this demo email generation application use case working. So, which is, it already has this demo use case working. Sorry, this. Anyways, yeah. So you can just give the input, get the email, like generate the email you want. Like this is the input, and make it more complex, like writing a congratulatory email to a colleague for his long due promotion. Make it sound personal, coming from a long time friend who has seen his struggles. You hit submit. Here you get the output. And all of this is here in this repo. And this was the use case that we are talking about, the email generation use case. And all the instructions and everything is there. And to access the application that I showed you, the sandbox, you can just copy this link and it's available hosted on the internet. Easy peasy.
So yeah, awesome. All the links and resources that we shared there, you can find myself at those links, Shubham, and all the amazing things in his newsletter, all on Twitter, and those social links are also on that. I did want to say that we are doing this as a series, so building actual AI products. So the next part of this series is going to be on March 15th, actually with Hugging Face. So if you're interested in not only just large language models, but NLP and ML in general, Hugging Face is a super cool open source platform library. They're doing so much now. I don't know what one word to describe them, but we'll have actually Merve from Hugging Face to talk about the transformer models, which is something we touched upon here, as well as how we actually can build products on that. But thank you all for joining. This has been great. The great questions. I love all the use cases and product questions that you have. It seems like you're definitely going to be building something. And feel free to ping us anytime if you have any questions on there. But see you in the next session if you're interested in Hugging Face as well.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you. Bye.